Emily Morgan tugged self-consciously at the sleeve of her grey cashmere sweater as she stood at the threshold of Rebecca's magnificent home. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the immaculate entryway. Fresh white orchids adorned marble tables, their subtle fragrance mingling with the scent of expensive perfume. "I should have worn something different," she murmured to herself, smoothing down her simple black skirt. At 46, Emily had never been one for luxury fashion despite her means. She preferred comfort over couture, substance over style. A uniformed server approached with a silver tray of champagne flutes. Emily took one with a grateful smile. She hadn't seen Rebecca since college over 20 years ago, but they had reconnected online recently. Rebecca had insisted Emily attend her dinner party, saying she was dying to catch up. "Rebecca will be down shortly," the server informed her. "The other guests are in the dining room." Emily nodded and made her way toward the soft chatter and tinkling laughter. As she entered the opulent dining room, conversation momentarily ceased. 6 women in designer clothing sat around a table glittering with fine china and crystal. Each wore enviable jewelry and perfectly styled hair. Their eyes, sharpened by years of social competitions, took in Emily's simple appearance with immediate judgment. "You must be Rebecca's friend." A blonde woman with a pearl necklace broke the silence. Her voice honeyed, but her eyes cold. "Yes, I'm Emily Morgan. Rebecca and I were roommates in college." "How charming," another woman replied, her voice suggesting it was anything but. "I'm Sophia. Please join us." Emily took the empty seat, setting her small handbag beside her plate. She felt rather than saw the discreet exchange of glances around the table. "Rebecca mentioned you're in furniture," Sophia said, the final word delivered like a curious specimen to be examined. "Yes, that's right," Emily answered simply. She never elaborated on her success unless necessary. Years of experience had taught her that people's reactions to wealth said more about them than any resume could reveal. "That must be interesting," offered a woman with an impressive diamond bracelet. "I'm Olivia, by the way. My husband's in real estate development. He just closed a $40 million deal on the east side," added Sophia with the rehearsed casualness of someone accustomed to dropping figures into conversation. Emily smiled politely. "That sounds impressive." The women launched into a discussion of their husbands' business ventures and their own charity boards, designer purchases, and upcoming vacations. Emily listened, occasionally sipping her champagne. "And what about you, Emily?" Sophia finally asked. "What brings you back to town?" "Furniture shopping." She laughed delicately at her own joke, the others joining in with forced politeness. "Actually, I'm here for a few meetings," Emily replied honestly. What she didn't add was that those meetings were with her investment team about diversifying the enormous windfall from selling her company 6 months ago. "Oh, meetings, how exciting," drawled Olivia, exchanging amused glances with Sophia. Emily observed them calmly. She'd encountered this before, the immediate dismissal based on appearances. Once it would have bothered her, but she'd long since learned that true worth wasn't measured in designer labels or status symbols. "Where is Rebecca?" someone asked. "It's not like her to be late to her own dinner party." "She texted that she's running behind," Olivia said. "Something about a delivery issue with the flowers." Emily inwardly sighed. Without Rebecca as a buffer, the evening stretched before her like a social minefield. Little did she know the real ordeal was just beginning. "So, Emily," Sophia leaned forward slightly, her diamond earrings catching the light. "Tell us more about this furniture business of yours. Do you have a little shop somewhere?" The dismissive tone wasn't lost on Emily. She'd faced it countless times during her 20-year journey from garage workshop to industry leader. "I design custom pieces," Emily answered simply. She could have mentioned her company's international presence or the celebrity clients who commissioned her work. But years of being underestimated had taught her the value of humility. "How quaint," Sophia replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I think my housekeeper's daughter does something similar. Crafts, right? Laughter rippled around the table, except from Emily, who simply smiled politely. I imagine it must be difficult, Olivia interjected, her voice dripping with insincere sympathy. Such a competitive market. My husband always says retail is a brutal business. Emily took a sip of her champagne. It has its challenges. But surely it's just a hobby, pressed Sophia. Something to keep you busy. Another woman who'd introduced herself as Natalie glanced at Emily's unadorned hands. No wedding ring. Never found time for family between all the furniture making. Emily set her glass down carefully. I chose to focus on my business. Sophia shared a look with Olivia. Well, we all make our choices. Some of us are just fortunate enough to have options. She adjusted her pearl necklace with manicured fingers. A server appeared, placing elaborately plated appetizers before each guest. Emily noticed how Sophia's eyes narrowed slightly when she thanked the server by name. These look lovely, Emily commented, admiring the artistic arrangement. Rebecca employs the most sought-after private chef in the city, Natalie said. Impossible to book unless you know someone. My husband tried for months before I called in a favor. The restaurant he opened last year has already earned a Michelin star, added Sophia, studying Emily for a reaction. Emily nodded appreciatively. The food looks wonderful. Emily, I'm curious, Olivia said delicately, spearing a scallop with her fork. What brought you into furniture? It seems such an unusual choice. Before Emily could answer, Sophia chimed in. Perhaps it's a family business. Something passed down. The implication was clear. They couldn't imagine someone choosing such a profession without inheritance or necessity. Actually, I started from scratch, Emily explained. I studied design in college and always had a passion for creating functional art. Functional art. Sophia repeated as if tasting something sour. How interesting. She means furniture that's both beautiful and practical. Another woman, Claire, translated unnecessarily. Yes, I gathered that. Thank you, Claire, Sophia replied with a tight smile. Emily observed the subtle power dynamics at play. Sophia was clearly the alpha of this social circle, with the others falling into familiar patterns around her. It was remarkably similar to corporate board meetings she'd attended, just with more expensive jewelry. Your sweater is quite comfortable looking, Natalie observed, her gaze lingering on Emily's simple grey cashmere. Is that a fashion choice? Emily's lips curved slightly. I prefer simplicity. Simplicity? Sophia echoed, exchanging glances with Olivia. Well, not everyone can pull off couture. Or afford it, murmured someone else, just loudly enough to be heard. Emily brushed an invisible crumb from her sleeve, unbothered. The sweater, though understated, was actually handcrafted by an elderly artisan whose work she'd admired for years. It had cost more than Sophia's flashy dress. But Emily saw no need to point this out. More champagne, Emily. Olivia offered, clearly hoping to move the conversation along. Emily shook her head. I'm fine, thank you. Perhaps something stronger? You look like you could use it, Sophia suggested with a laugh that the others quickly echoed. As the laughter faded, Emily caught a glimpse of her reflection in a polished silver candlestick. Her simple red hair in its practical bun, her minimal makeup, her unassuming posture, all carefully cultivated over years of business negotiations, where being underestimated had worked to her advantage. Tonight was no different. Dinner progressed with the careful choreography of high society. Servers glided between chairs, replacing plates and refreshing glasses with practiced precision. Emily observed it all with quiet interest, occasionally catching the eye of a server who seemed surprised by her genuine thank you each time. Did you see Eliza's new summer home? Sophia asked the table, pointedly excluding Emily from her gaze. Waterfront, 6 bedrooms, and the most divine infinity pool overlooking the bay. I heard she paid nearly $12 million, Olivia added, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that was meant to be heard. 12.5, corrected Natalie. My husband's firm handled the transaction. Emily cut into her perfectly cooked steak, listening as the conversation flowed around her. These women measured their worth, and others, in square footage and price tags. What about you, Emily? Claire asked suddenly. Do you have a vacation property? All eyes turned to her, expecting either an admission of modesty or an unconvincing attempt to match their opulence. I have a cabin by a lake, Emily answered honestly. What she didn't add was that her cabin encompassed 80 acres of pristine woodland with its own private lake, or that renowned architects had begged to design it. Sophia smirked. How rustic. I suppose that makes sense for someone in furniture. I grew up near the woods, Emily explained. I find it peaceful. Well, not everyone needs luxury, Olivia said with forced generosity. Some people are perfectly content with the simple things. Emily could have mentioned that her property had been featured in architectural magazines, but she merely nodded. Exactly. The conversation shifted to charity galas and board positions. Names were dropped like coins into a fountain, each with an accompanying splash of importance. I'm chairing the Children's Hospital benefit this year, Sophia announced. We're hoping to raise $2 million. Wonderful cause, Emily commented. She didn't mention her own anonymous 7-figure donation to that same hospital last month. Do you do much charity work, Emily? Natalie asked with the air of someone who already knew the answer. Before Emily could respond, one of the servers approached her discreetly. Excuse me, Ms. Morgan. There's a call for you. The gentleman says it's urgent. Emily frowned slightly. Thank you. I'll take it in the hall. As she stood, Sophia raised an eyebrow. Business emergency with a furniture delivery? The table tittered with laughter as Emily stepped away. In the hallway, she took the cordless phone offered by the server. Emily Morgan speaking. Ms. Morgan, it's Thomas from Westfield Trust. I apologize for disturbing your evening, but we need your approval on the transfer of funds for tomorrow's acquisition. It's the 8-figure transaction we discussed. Emily glanced back toward the dining room. Yes, that's fine. Please proceed as planned. Excellent. The paperwork will be ready for your signature tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Again, sorry to interrupt your evening. No problem at all. Thank you, Thomas. Emily handed the phone back to the waiting server, who hesitated before speaking. Ms. Morgan, if you don't mind me asking, are you the Emily Morgan? The one who designed the Harmony collection? Surprised, Emily nodded. Yes, that's me. The young man's eyes widened. My mother saved for 3 years to buy one of your coffee tables. She says it's the most beautiful thing she's ever owned. Emily smiled warmly. That's very kind. What's your mother's name? I'd be happy to send her something from our new collection. Really? Her name is Julia Martinez. She would absolutely. There you are, Emily. Olivia's voice cut through the moment as she appeared in the hallway. We were beginning to think you'd escaped through a window. Her eyes flicked dismissively to the server, who quickly excused himself. Just a quick business call, Emily explained. On a Friday evening. Olivia linked her arm through Emily's, guiding her back to the dining room. My husband never allows business calls during dinner. He says it's a sign of poor management if you can't delegate properly. Emily said nothing as they returned to the table where dessert was being served. The women barely acknowledged her return, already deep into discussion about an upcoming designer showcase. You simply must see Sophia's new collection, Natalie was saying as Emily settled back into her seat. She's commissioned pieces from all the top designers. Her home looks like a museum. A curated museum, Sophia corrected with a satisfied smile. I can't stand clutter. Everything must have purpose and pedigree. Emily sampled her dessert, a delicate lemon soufflé that melted on her tongue. She noticed the women watching her as if evaluating whether she could properly appreciate such refinement. And what's your decorating style, Emily? Claire asked. Do you use your own creations? The slight pause made the question sound more like an accusation than genuine interest. I keep things simple, Emily replied, which was true. Her home featured carefully chosen pieces, many crafted by emerging artisans she discovered over the years. I imagine that's economical, Sophia said with a thin smile. Not everyone can afford to redecorate seasonally. I prefer quality over quantity, Emily responded, maintaining her composure. Sophia leaned forward, her diamond bracelet catching the light. Speaking of quality, did I mention my husband just gifted me with a stunning piece for our anniversary? She extended her wrist, showcasing an ostentatious diamond bracelet. Custom design. Apparently, the stones alone are worth more than some people's homes. The women cooed appropriately, examining the jewelry with exaggerated enthusiasm. Emily politely admired it when Sophia thrust her wrist in her direction. It's lovely, she said simply. Sophia's smile tightened. The designer said it's museum quality, something to pass down through generations. If you have children to pass things to, Olivia added with a pointed glance at Emily. The implication stung more than Emily expected. She'd chosen her career path deliberately, but these women made it sound like a failure rather than a choice. Not everyone's path includes marriage and children, Emily said quietly. There are many ways to leave a legacy. Sophia laughed, a sharp sound that held no warmth. Oh, darling, no career compares to family. What's the point of success if you have no one to share it with? The others murmured in agreement, their wedding rings glinting under the chandelier light. I think success is defined individually, Emily countered, her voice still even. For some, it's family. For others, it's creating something meaningful. Creating furniture, Sophia said, drawing out the word. Well, I suppose someone has to do it. The deliberate condescension was like a slap, but Emily had faced worse in boardrooms, dominated by men who thought a woman couldn't possibly understand business. Exactly, Emily agreed pleasantly. Someone does. Sophia's eyes narrowed at Emily's unflappable demeanor. She clearly expected Emily to either wither under her scorn or lash out defensively. When neither happened, her tactics escalated. I don't mean to be rude, Sophia said in a tone that suggested she meant exactly that. But that sweater, is it a hand-me-down? It looks rather worn at the elbows. Emily glanced down at her sleeve. The sweater was actually less than a month old, but its muted color and simple design apparently read as cheap to these women. It's comfortable, she replied, refusing to defend her clothing choices. Comfort over style, Olivia said with a laugh. How pragmatic. I'd always say, Sophia added, swirling her wine, you can tell a lot about someone by what they choose to wear. It's a statement about how you value yourself. Emily met her gaze evenly. I couldn't agree more. Sophia's smile faltered slightly at Emily's calm response. She'd expected embarrassment, perhaps even tears. Instead, she found herself facing a woman who seemed completely unbothered by her barbs. Well, Sophia continued, doubling down, I suppose when you work with your hands, fancy clothes would just get ruined. I'd hardly call it working with her hands. Nathalie added with air quotes. It's more like arts and crafts for grown-ups. Laughter rippled around the table, sharp and excluding. Emily remained silent, taking a sip of water. Oh, don't look so serious, Emily, Sophia said, noticing her lack of reaction. We're just having a bit of fun. No need to be sensitive. Emily set down her glass. I'm not sensitive. I just don't find humor at others' expense particularly amusing. The table fell silent. No one had expected such direct pushback. Before Sophia could respond, the dining room door opened. All heads turned as Rebecca finally entered. Rebecca swept into the room with the confident grace of someone accustomed to making entrances. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled. Her black dress elegant yet understated. Unlike the other women, her only jewelry was a simple strand of pearls. I'm so sorry I'm late, everyone. The caterer had a mini crisis that needed my attention, she announced, then broke into a warm smile when she spotted Emily. Emily, you made it. She hurried over to embrace Emily warmly. A genuine affection that contrasted sharply with the cool reception Emily had received from the others. I've been so looking forward to catching up, Rebecca said, taking the empty seat beside Emily. It's been far too long. Sophia cleared her throat delicately. We've been entertaining your friend, Rebecca. Such an interesting background she has. Rebecca's eyes narrowed slightly as she glanced around the table, clearly sensing the atmosphere. I hope everyone's been making Emily feel welcome. An awkward silence followed, broken by Olivia's overly bright, of course. We've been fascinated hearing about her furniture hobby. Rebecca's eyebrows shot up. Hobby. She looked at Emily in confusion. Did you not tell them? Emily shrugged slightly. It didn't come up. Tell us what? Sophia asked, her curiosity piqued despite herself. Rebecca looked around the table, genuine surprise on her face. You mean none of you recognize Emily Morgan? The Emily Morgan. Blank stares met her question. Rebecca laughed in disbelief. Ladies, Emily isn't just in furniture. She founded Morgan Designs, one of the most successful furniture companies in the country. Her pieces are in museums. Sophia's smile froze on her face. Morgan Designs? The luxury furniture brand. The very same, Rebecca confirmed. In fact, Sophia, that console table in your entryway that you bragged about last month. That's one of Emily's designs. Sophia's face paled visibly. But that table cost a fortune. Yes, Rebecca finished for her. Emily's work always does. She turned to Emily with a grin. Should I tell them, or would you like to? Emily shook her head slightly, but Rebecca was already continuing. Emily recently sold her company for $750 million. Cash deal. It was in all the business news last month. The silence that followed was deafening. 6 pairs of eyes stared at Emily in disbelief, mentally recalculating everything they had assumed about the quiet woman in the simple gray sweater. $750 million. Nati finally whispered, her voice cracking slightly. Actually, it was $753 million, Emily corrected softly. But who's counting? Sophia's champagne glass nearly slipped from her fingers. But your clothes. You don't look rich. I never saw the point in flashy displays of wealth, Emily replied. I prefer to let my work speak for itself. Olivia was now staring at Emily's simple sweater with new eyes. That's not just any cashmere, is it? Emily smiled slightly. It's hand-loomed by a master craftsman in Scotland. He only makes 12 pieces a year. The phone call, Sophia said suddenly, comprehension dawning. That wasn't about a furniture delivery. Investment portfolio, Emily confirmed. We're diversifying after the sale. Rebecca was watching the reactions with barely concealed delight. Did I mention Emily's philanthropic work? The children's wing at Memorial Hospital. That was her donation. Anonymously, of course. $22 million, Emily admitted reluctantly. They needed a new oncology department. Sophia's mouth opened and closed without sound. Just minutes earlier, she'd been boasting about raising $2 million for charity. But you never said anything, Claire finally managed. All evening while we were being completely condescending. Rebecca supplied helpfully. Yes, I noticed that when I walked in. Not our finest moment as hostesses, ladies. Emily shrugged. I've never been one to flaunt success. In business, being underestimated often works to my advantage. Well, Sophia said, attempting to recover her composure. This is certainly a surprise. Had I known, I'd have treated you differently. Emily finished for her. That's precisely why I didn't mention it. People reveal their true character when they think they have nothing to gain from you. The table fell silent as the implications of her words sank in. The atmosphere in the dining room had transformed. Where there had been dismissive glances and barely concealed disdain. Now there was an awkward difference. The women who had been so quick to judge Emily based on her appearance were now stumbling over themselves to re-establish a connection. "I've always admired entrepreneurs," Sophia said, her voice honeyed with newfound respect. "The dedication it takes to build something from nothing is truly admirable." Emily merely nodded, neither accepting nor rejecting this sudden change of heart. "My summer home actually has several pieces from your collection," Natalie added eagerly. "The craftsmanship is exquisite. I should have recognized your name immediately." "You've only ordered through designers," Emily pointed out quietly. "We've never actually met." Olivia leaned forward, her diamond bracelet flashing in the light. "Emily, I'd love to discuss a potential collaboration. My husband's development projects often need unique furnishings for the model homes." Rebecca caught Emily's eye across the table, raising an eyebrow in silent communication. They'd been close enough in college to recognize the absurdity of the situation. "Ladies," Rebecca interrupted smoothly, "perhaps we could save the business proposals for another time. This is supposed to be a social evening, after all." Sophia, clearly determined to salvage her standing, raised her glass. "A toast," she declared, "to Emily and her remarkable success. We should all be so fortunate." The others quickly raised their glasses, murmuring agreement. Emily lifted hers politely but didn't drink. "Success means different things to different people," she said simply. "But surely," Sophia pressed, "the financial reward must be gratifying." After all those years of work, she still couldn't quite bring herself to fully respect furniture making as a prestigious career. Emily set her glass down. "The money was never the point. I started designing furniture because I loved creating things that would become part of people's lives. Pieces they gather around for family dinners or curl up on with a book." She paused. The fortune it brought was secondary. "How refreshingly humble," Olivia said, though her tone suggested she didn't quite believe it. Emily smiled faintly. "Not humble, just honest. Some of my happiest days were in my first workshop with sawdust in my hair and not a penny to my name." The women exchanged glances, clearly unable to comprehend valuing experience over affluence. "Well," Claire said brightly, clearly trying to move past the awkwardness, "now you can enjoy the best of both worlds. All that money and the freedom to do whatever you want." Emily nodded. "Yes, freedom is the true luxury. The freedom to choose how I spend my time and with whom." Her gaze swept around the table, the implication clear. These were not the people she would choose. Rebecca, sensing the tension, stood up. "Why don't we move to the sitting room for coffee? Emily, I want to hear all about that educational foundation you mentioned starting." As they moved from the dining room, Emily found herself walking alongside Sophia, who was now making a determined effort to establish a more personal connection. "I feel I should apologize for my earlier comments," Sophia said in a low voice. "Had I known who you were." "That's exactly the problem," Emily interrupted gently. "You shouldn't need to know who I am to treat someone with basic courtesy." Sophia flushed. "I didn't mean to suggest." "Yes, you did," Emily said, her voice still calm but now tinged with steel. "You meant that wealth and status determine how much respect someone deserves. That's a disappointing way to move through life." Sophia stopped walking, momentarily stunned by the directness. Emily continued toward the sitting room, where Rebecca was arranging coffee service. The other women were already seated, their body language noticeably different, more attentive, more deferential toward Emily. "The foundation," Rebecca prompted as Emily took a seat. "Tell everyone about it." Emily smiled, genuine warmth replacing her earlier reserve. "We're creating educational opportunities for young people interested in traditional craftsmanship and design. Full scholarships, apprenticeships with master artisans, business training." "How charitable," Sophia commented, having recovered enough to rejoin the group. "It's not charity," Emily corrected. "It's investment in talent that might otherwise be overlooked." She looked directly at Sophia. Rather like I was this evening. The silence that followed was thick with understanding. As the evening drew to a close, Emily stood on Rebecca's front porch, waiting for her car. Rebecca joined her, handing her a light wrap against the evening chill. "I'm sorry about tonight," Rebecca said softly. "I had no idea they would behave that way." Emily smiled. "Don't apologize. It was illuminating, actually." Still, Rebecca sighed. The way they changed once they knew about your success. It was almost grotesque. Emily nodded, gazing out at the manicured gardens, illuminated by strategic landscape lighting. Money doesn't change who we are. It just amplifies what's already there. "And what about you?" Rebecca asked. "Has your fortune changed you?" Emily considered this. "I don't think so. I still value the same things: honesty, creativity, treating people with dignity regardless of what they can offer me." Her car appeared at the end of the driveway, a modest sedan rather than the luxury vehicle her wealth could easily afford. "That's why you'll always be rich in ways they can't understand," Rebecca said, embracing her friend. As Emily drove away, she reflected on the evening. Those women had everything society claimed was important: status, luxury, connections. Yet they seemed desperately unhappy, constantly comparing, judging, scrambling for position. True wealth, Emily had learned long ago, wasn't measured in dollars or possessions. It was found in purpose, integrity, and the courage to remain authentic even when others dismissed you. Tonight was a reminder of why she'd always chosen substance over appearance, compassion over competition, and the quiet satisfaction of staying true to herself over the hollow validation of society's applause. What truly matters isn't what we have, but who we are when no one's looking.